I mean, you're at your job or you're interning, getting into your career, and you don't like how your boss is doing things. Do you band together as an intern and say, look, boss, we don't like what you're doing. Maybe we could have, you know, instead of 10 hours a day not working, getting paid for it, doing things we don't like because we want to get in a position where we do like, instead of 10 hours a day, can you give us like lunch, maybe? Where management says, how dare you question us? You know, we get us another intern that really likes doing what they like to do. So, for instance, President Biden, does your TV show you these children in Gaza? Does their murder deserve your condemnation? We boycott the Biden celebration due to the administration's callous response to Israel's brutal violence. Wow. What say we? Does Biden notice any of this? Well, he may not notice it, but his interns do. So these are Biden's interns, and they wrote a letter protesting to the president about the war in Gaza. And you know, the interesting thing is, we have that letter. Some people may talk about it. They may have showed you a little bit on TV, but we have that letter where they protested. And before I read you that letter, I'm going to talk to you about, wow, what the interns wanted. Okay? This is interesting. This is how it starts. The White House interns demand Biden call for ceasefire. And these are interns. We, the undersigned fall 2023 White House and Executive Office of the President interns, will no longer remain silent on the ongoing genocide of the Palestinian people. That's how the letter began. So now more than 40 anonymous interns, they issued this letter to Biden, President Biden, and Vice President Harris, demanding that the administration call for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza and support a political solution to end Israel apartheid. And these are interns saying this, okay? Tevi Troy, who was Deputy Secretary of Health and Human Services under President George Bush, and has written several histories of U.S. presidential administrations, he said that he could not imagine such a letter being written under previous presidents. It would be inconceivable for an intern in the George W. Bush White House to write a letter dealing with the statements objecting to White House policy. And this holds far more than any White House that he's ever studied, he said. You're an intern. Interns are the most disposable employees in the White House and typically do everything they can to make sure that they keep their positions. So what if the White House said, you know what, for all the ones that had something to say, you're out. Maybe that's why they didn't show their faces and sign their names. So this is interesting as we go more into this. Hate to say this, what they say in here, but interns who think they have the right to usurp the president's role as policymaker are not wise enough to be interning anywhere, much less the White House. So the White House interns are joining other groups, like I said, you have other government officials that are saying, you know, there should be a ceasefire in Gaza. 554 congressional aides, they also anonymously signed an open letter asking for a ceasefire. So now let's go into this letter a little bit. 40 plus interns wrote it, though nobody left their names. They say they serve in various offices, from the Executive Office of the President, Office of the Vice President, Office of Science and Technology Policy, and Office of the United States Trade Representative. So they maintain they want a ceasefire. But a source familiar with the letter pushed back on its significance, saying that it was organized by a woman named Daira Najat Garan. And they say she's not even directly affiliated with the White House. So was this person kind of outsourced to do this to cause some trouble. So the White House, and the source said a number of interns approached White House staff in recent days to indicate that they were uncomfortable how the letter was coming together. Well, how is the letter coming together? So in this letter, it said they were looking for a ceasefire. And it is very interesting because as they're looking for a ceasefire, Biden has still said that they have to decide if they want to do a ceasefire, if it's worth doing. So, interns right here, okay? Okay, that's the interns right there. And look at all these interns. So, all of these are deciding the fate of the world with the world. Wow. Bold interns. But be bolder and put your names to the letter that you wrote. Speaking of letter, here he is. Or here we are. Dear President Biden and Vice President Harris, we, the undersigned Fall 2023 White House and Executive Office of the Presidential Interns, will no longer remain silent on the ongoing genocide of the Palestinian people. We are Palestinian, Jewish, Arab, Muslim, Christian, Black, Asian, Latino, white, and queer. We heed the voices of the American people and call on the administration to demand a permanent ceasefire. We are not the decision makers of today, but we aspire to be the leaders of tomorrow. And we will never forget how the pleas of the American people have been heard and thus far ignored. Our decision to enter into your administration was driven by our shared values and the profound belief that under your leadership, America has the potential to be a nation that stands for justice and peace. Nonetheless, the ongoing violence perpetrated by the Israel government, as well as the ongoing dehumanizing rhetoric targeting Muslims and Arabs, has promoted a wave of massive violence and tragedies, including the brutal shooting of 3 Palestinian students in Vermont and the murder of a Palestinian 6-year-old boy in Chicago. We acknowledge that these acts of violence are inconsistent with the administration's policies and principles and the national strategies to combat anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. We were horrified by the brutal October 7th Hamas attack on Israel's citizens, and we are horrified by the brutal and genocidal response by the Israel government funded by our American tax dollars, which has killed over 14,000 innocent Palestinian citizens in Gaza, a large percentage of whom are children. While the administration expressed support for the humanitarian cause, we maintain that anything other than a complete halt of Israel's mass slaughter of innocent civilians in the Gaza Strip will simply not suffice. We urge the Biden-Harris administration to call for a permanent ceasefire now, a release of all hostages, including Palestinian political prisoners, and to support a diplomatic solution that will put an end to the illegal occupation and the Israel apartheid in accordance with international law and for a free Palestine. In solidarity, 40 plus White House and EOP interns for Palestine, Domestic Policy Council, Executive Office of the President, Executive Office of the President, Council of Economic Affairs, Office of Clean Energy Innovation and Implementation, Office of Presidential Correspondent, Office of Science and Technology Policy, Office of United States Trade Representative, Office of the Vice President, White House Council on Environmental Quality, and other White House officers who wish to remain anonymous. That's the letter right here. So excuse me if I mispronounce some words. There's a lot of reading, and I'm doing a lot of cold reading, but hopefully you get the picture. So again, this is the letter that the intern wrote. Everybody is against this war. Most people want ceasefires. But what does the White House want? Really, What does the White House want?